Hello, everyone. Welcome to the EMCC Global Provider Summit. I'm really happy to be here at the testament to the fast evolving nature of team coaching and happily present you Tammy Turner and Colm Murphy and the one and only Professor David Clutterback.
Thank you, Tamar. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. We are delighted to join you wherever you are in the world, at whatever time of day or night it might be. We're going to make this a very interactive session. So to start us off, we've got a question that we would like to share with you in the chat. And get your fingers working wherever you are in the world. They might be a bit cold or a bit warm. And what we'd like to know is, before we do some brief introductions, what is one thing you associate November with? So when you think about November, here we are on the 15th, what do you connect from your culture, from your country, from your own experience? So just seeing a few of these, and then I'll jump in and get Tammy and David to say hello. But Matt has birthdays in the house, as do I, Matt. There's a few birthdays in our house as well. Lou talks about fireworks, lovely. November Rain song, am I right? No, it's November Rain, Guns N' Roses, or is it Prince? Come back to me, Mohammed, on that. Whether you're talking about a song or you're just talking about rain, who knows? November 5th being mentioned, Movember, Lewis. So Movember is growing moustache for charity. Very good. Springtime in New Zealand. Jenny, you are making me very jealous. So keep those going. Bonjour from Brussels, from Cheryl as well. We'll come back to some of your November experiences, but I'd love to get my two wonderful colleagues to introduce themselves. So ladies first, Tammy, can I hand the mic over to you?
Awesome. Thank you, Colm. Looking forward to having a chat with you and David here shortly. I guess to segue from what November means to me, as you'll hear my accent, I'm originally from Colorado in the US. And so November really reminds me of Thanksgiving. So so I guess I'm really thankful to be here with everybody today. I've been coaching full-time since about 2001. I'm both a master certified coach and a team coach with the EMCC and a qualified supervisor with the EMCC and an ICF master certified coach and team coach as well. So all of those things out of the road. Looking forward to talking a little bit about what we've all learned in the last few years of launching the Global Team Coaching Institute, as well as pulling together the cases for the Team Coaching Casebook. David, what about you?
Yeah, well, I've just been around. I've been around for a very long time, so long that I ended up this year for my 75th birthday writing my 75th book, looking back at 45 years of development in this whole field, and I had a lot of fun doing it. So when I think of November, I actually think of the Nova, the new, as being a time for renewal and for innovation and creativity, and I think that for me is that's what it means, or one of the things that it means. I think any word can have multiple meanings for us. So yes, and I've been involved in team coaching specifically for a very long time, but wrote the first evidence-based book on team coaching nearly more than 15 years ago. So I'm thrilled with how the whole field has developed. And the casebook has been one of the things that's actually pulled together a broad picture of the diversity that we've seen in the development of team coaching.
Thanks, David. And I just mental note to myself, don't follow David when you're doing introductions. That's a learning for me to follow after that. How can I add to that? So, hi, everybody. My name is Colm Murphy. I'm from Dublin in Ireland. I've been running my own coaching business for 14 years. November is all about birthdays because 15 years ago, recently, we had the arrival of triplet boys, which kind of spurred on the move from corporate travel to running my own business. So there's lots of births happening around this time of year for me. Team coach, have also been a former head of coaching at University College Dublin in terms of our exec ed programs. And I'm also also a member of GTCI, and I'm leading the design of the senior practitioner program for GTCI coming in next year as well. So, and a co-editor with Tammy and David. So delighted to be here with them as well. Before we get into it, maybe just a few things. We'd like you to stay on mute if you can, just so we don't get any background noise. If you do want to join and speak up and share with us, please just raise a hand on the function, so we'll find you and get you to join us live. Or the chat is always being looked at as well. So again, thank you for sharing your November experiences. Please free to keep adding your comments, your observations, or your insults into the chat, and we'll deal with them as they come along. So
just one thing, probably, Colm, just to say, to tell people that don't know, the GTCI, of course, stands for the Global Team Coaching Institute.
Thank you, David.
So would love to hear from you guys as well around the questions that we're all going to be talking about here. So please, as Colm just said, put your comments into the chat box. We'd love to read them as well. So Colm, starting with you, what's the need for team coaching?
Yeah, and just to say to folks, we're going to spend probably 15, 20 minutes having a discussion, then we'll get you into breakout rooms. So the need, so as you asked that question, and as I pondered it, I thought about actually there's two things. There's the need and the want. I think we may get into that conversation as well. So the need, and I'm going to frame the need right now on November 15th, 2022, because we can talk about the need that's always been there for teams to perform better, be more effective. What I'm hearing right now, and again, David, Tammy, and others, please jump in. I'm hearing a lot of leaders and organizations talk about a few things: connection. So post-COVID, finding a new rhythm. Teams hybrid, teams in, teams out. I'm hearing a real need for how, as a leader or a team member, do I connect with my peers in my team? Do I connect with our purpose? Do I connect with our stakeholders? So I'm hearing connectivity, not from a Wi-Fi point of view, but I'm hearing that is a real need right now. And then the second one, and then I'll stop talking, is adaptability. What I keep on hearing through my one-to-one work or talking to teams is, how can we be more adaptable as a team? It's almost, we will always claim it's never been so busy or so complex. And we could say the same thing back in 1872. But I think there's a volume of change, and there's a volume of the global mood between wars and recession and energy costs. Teams are struggling with giving up having the right answer, because I'm not sure any of us have the answers. And letting go of that need means we have to be more adaptable. And how can teams get away from, this is the playbook we've always used, to how do we learn as we work together so we can adapt? So I'm hearing those two needs. The last thing is, I think the want still feels, not for everybody, but still feels a bit like we want a day with the team where we do a personality profile. And I think that's part of the chasm that I get to experience. David, I saw you kind of smile there. What about for you in this question?
I really like this distinction between need and want. And I conducted a piece of research earlier this year with the conference board. And we did focus groups with HR directors across Europe, from lots of large companies. And we were asking them about post-COVID leadership and the challenges that they were facing in their organizations. And one of the things that really struck me was how many of these HR directors said, we've got a big problem. A high proportion, one of them even said 70%, but they wouldn't let us quote that, of their top executives are effectively obsolete for two big reasons. One, they can't think systemically, and two, they can't let go. They let go a little bit in during COVID, and now they want to take it all back. And the need is now for distributed leadership, for engaging with teams and sharing the leadership role, because it's too big and too difficult to do on your own. And so we've got this big splurge of imposter syndrome. So all those things are making it very difficult for these managers to work. And the only way that they'll be able to let go and to become the leaders they need is to do it with the help of their teams. And that vulnerability of asking for their teams. And so there's what emerged as part of this study was that there's a pressure here from the organization, from these guys to actually basically change the way they lead their teams with the consent and the help of their teams. So I think, that can't be done just by telling them to do it. It's got to be done through coaching. So I think that's one big movement that we're seeing. The other big movement that we're seeing is that we've got many more short-term teams, instant teams, or pop-up teams, as we sometimes call them. They need help. They can't afford to go through all this rubbish of forming, storming, norming to performing. It takes too long. It's time's passed you by the time you get to performing, even if the theory were true. And so having a team coach there to step in and to be the crucible in which the team is formed and clarifies what it's there for, gets it moving, hitting the ground running from the start. So that's another big movement that I think we're seeing. Certainly it's a need. And where the gap is, as you rightly point out, Colm, is between people's appreciation of what team coaching can do and how it can really help their organization to thrive, and what they're prepared to spend the time on, because it's challenging and threatening. Tammy.
Yeah, it's interesting what you guys are both talking about, because the nature of team coaching is such a systemic offering, I guess I would call it, in that it's flexing with whatever's happening with the organization as the organization changes, and or the people within that team change, environmental factors are coming in, etc. Then so too do we as coaches need to flex, so too does that team that we're coaching have to flex, etc. And so, it's never going to be done. I think that's what team coaches that we have worked with, you see, it's like, oh, when's the team done? Well, they're never done. The organization is never done evolving. So there will always be kind of a need for team coaching out there. But I think that what we're talking about is also really important, Colm, what you said about want, is there actually a want out there? And it's really fascinating, because I've been talking a lot to team coaches, and right now, although there's a massive need for it around the globe, do teams even know what it is? Does the organization know what it is? How do we actually convert those folks who need team coaching to want it? And, so one of the things that I've heard myself saying a lot recently, and also, both in my capacity as a trainer, but also, to prospective clients, is the fact that, team coaching is not leadership development. And it is not just getting teams to behave well or work well together or what have you. It's also, there's a business component to this about why they need team coaching, because to be able to make solid decisions, for example, to be able to make KPIs, to really look at what are their stakeholders wanting from them, and how do they want to work with those stakeholders and partners, and what kinds of contracts and contracting is needed to be done. So even if you're not doing, let's say, formal team coaching, all of that type of stuff is things that organizations are forever in need of. So, that kind of segues us into the next topic, which is, how is team coaching evolving? And if indeed, has it really, or are we just labeling it something different?
Why don't we, David, has a go. Before David has a go, folks, we'd love to have your comments. What's resonating with you? Francois has already asked, we'll go back to it, ask Tammy to expand more on that lovely comment about how team coaching is different to leadership development. So we'll get to as many questions as we can, but please keep on filling up the chat function with what's resonating, what isn't resonating, curiosities, questions. So we want to make sure we're interacting with you. So David, sorry, I interrupted you there. Over to you.
Oh, that's good. When we go back to when we really started talking about team coaching 15, 20 years ago, it was really about team facilitation, and solving a current problem, rather than actually creating the capability for the team to evolve itself and take the responsibility for its own development on. And one of the things that we noticed then was how linear all the thinking was. The models were all linear. And the approaches were all linear. The system didn't seem to come into it. And yet, the whole point of team coaching is helping. One of the points is to help the team see itself in its own systems, both internally and externally, and be able to react and respond to those. I did a quick whip through a number of organizations' team coaching programs just a little while ago, and the majority of them still are stuck in that linear mode. They're not really to helping the team systemically, and so the impact of that is going to be less. And if we think about how the whole field is developing into the future, I think it's fascinating because we've got this cascade where we help somebody one-to-one with development to grow. That has a small impact on the organization. They may only stay 3 or 4 years, if that. You help that person create a coaching culture in their team, then you've got a bigger impact. You help you coach that team and the individuals within it. The impact is much greater, and the cost of doing that is per head is much lower. But then you can coach the team of teams. You can coach the organization. You can coach the macro systems in which the organization is based, in theory. I think this is one of the most exciting areas to be a coach, in that you can see this whole vista opening up in front of you of ways in which you can add value well beyond what we could do when we were just coaching one-to-one.
Absolutely. Colm, do you want to have a go at this as well?
Yeah, I'll just do a quick build because I know we want to move on as well. So all of that, what he said, I guess is one thing. What else?
Oh, come on. You're just about to get your PhD around this stuff, Colm. Don't sell yourself short.
Exciting. So it's that. I think the evolving of team coaching has gone from it being let's take our role for a second as team coaches. We were interveners. It was very much, go back to Hackman and Wagman. It was very much process. Don't touch relationships was always the mantra. I think now we're into it's systemic. It's helping the team see the systems, but it's task work and teamwork. Relationships do matter. Relationships between the team, between team leader, relationships between the team and their stakeholders. One of the findings of my doctorate, which I'm hoping to finish this year, is as we worked on better quality of team relationships, they did a better job with the stakeholder relationship, and the stakeholder thought they were more effective because of it. Stakeholder began to say at the start of the coaching, just get it done. SLAs, do the task, just do task. As the team got better, more confident, and they built relationships, stakeholders are going, this is a great team now. Why? Well, they really get us. They understand us. They're connecting with us. The tasks haven't gone away, but it's reframed how they see effectiveness. So relationships is important. I think also what David's alluding to is back to this word connection. Our definition of a team is changing. We had this conversation 20 years ago. We'd be talking about a team where everybody was there for 4 or 5 years, different types of teams, but now teaming. How do I take some of the learning from this team and use it in the next team I'm in? And again, many of us are members of multiple teams. So there's a fluidness to this, but also we're now beginning to team and partner with other organizations. The days of, having a big building where we don't talk to competitors or suppliers, we treat them as just suppliers, are gone. So I think there's an opportunity for us to actually help the connections within the organization, but between other teams, so team of teams, but also the organization and other organizations. And it's that collective build. So I think that's where some of our work is. Tammy, what are you making of this conversation?
Yeah, well, I'm going to wrap some of these lovely questions that we're getting through into this as well, because I think they actually relate to what we're talking about. So if we look at some of the comments that you both have made about the fact that kind of working with teams and groups is nothing new. Like, it's been written about in leadership development books forever, right? And yet, I think that for me, the reason that I said about the fact that it's not just exclusively leadership development is the fact that, go back to whomever back in the 1980s or even earlier, leadership was much more kind of hierarchical. teams were stable. We had organizations that didn't have sort of the talent issues that we've got today. We had much more command and control sort of style of leading. So it was much more kind of stable, let's say. Still had, adaptivity and all of that. Whereas today, as people are putting in the chat here, is that teams have lots of composition that's changing. I'm coaching a team and a number of teams right now in a Teams of Teams project where, it's a matrixed organization, and then people might work for 2 or 3 different managers. They don't report to a single line of management. So how does team coaching work in those environments then? And that is much more around the fact where, how do you act more relational, like what Colm was talking about? What's my role and what's my purpose as a individual contributor within those multiple teams in which I serve? And what are my stakeholders within those teams as well as outside of those teams want from me? And to help those different teams and groups and subgroups make sense of that, about how they're going to communicate, what are their collective purpose, how are they going to cross-functionally serve the folks that they need to, and or cross-functionally actually deliver what's needing to be delivered, is really difficult to do when you're doing business as usual. Whereas as team coaches, if we can help on a regular basis have some of the structure that's going to support those teams and the individuals within them, their success rate goes up instrumentally, because then people kind of know they don't have the old structure from the 1980s or before, but they have the structure now of, this is the agreement that I've made with my team members. This is how I contract with my team members. Here are some of the things in which I need to share with other people and the other teams that I work with, etc. So in this kind of, then in this landscape that we're looking at around this, then how do we need to develop as a team coach? What are some of those challenges in all of the various things? And I know, to kick us off in this, one of the things that I really notice that the professional bodies are going to be struggling with is that team coaching, in my opinion, really straddles both the consulting and the coaching world. Back in the one-on-one days, where individual coaching straddled counseling or psychology and coaching, team coaching straddles consulting. So if I don't have consulting, can I be successful as a team coach, for example? Or do I have a bias going in, because I am a coach, to only look at the relationships and the dynamics between the team members, because that's what I know how to do? Or do I only go in and look at, say, coaching individuals as opposed to the collective, which is much more about, I know all 3 of us are passionate about. So Colm, segueing over to you before David closes off our topic and we go into the breakout rooms, what would you like to challenge us about on this?
Well, from a position of still learning my craft and also being an educator in this space, what strikes me as the most challenging part of developing as a team coach is the anxiety. The anxiety is multifaceted, because David's already mentioned there's anxiety in the team or the team leader in inviting us into the work, because we're gonna get inside the hood, and it's, one-to-one coaching has a level of safety, that whatever I talk about is with my coach. Now as a leader, I'm a bit more exposed because we're with the team and they're wondering, why are we doing this? So there's anxiety. Stepping in won't always last, but that's there. And what I notice most about team coaches is as we're developing, there's a level of anxiety. We've got to a level of expertise as one-to-one coaches, and that can often inhibit us, because we almost presume we're going to step into team coaching at the same level. And there's a bit of unlearning here. And the big unlearning, I think, is something that I'm sure none of us consciously think of when we're one-to-one coaching, but it's letting go of control. And I know in one-to-one coaching, we are very open, let the client run the agenda, but there's an element of control there. There's 2 of us, And we kind of, whether I'm using Grow or whatever else, I'm maneuvering it around. I know beginning, middle, and end. Put me in front of 7, 8, 9 people who have all of their dynamics, and I get anxious. So the big thing I think gets in the way of team coaches is needing to have all the tools and the models. They're useful to a point, but being in the room and being present is by far the greatest skill of a team coach, and embracing the messiness, because it is messy, all these ratios. So I think anxiety is a challenge. And then just one other one for me is in developing team coaches, one of the hardest things is the practice part. When I run a coaching program, the three of us could practice one-to-one coaching right now, and I coach Tammy and David observes, and we move around. How do we practice with teams? We can't bring them into a classroom. We could hire actors, but that doesn't feel right. We can role play. We know that has pros and cons. So I think a lot of tied in with the anxiety is the bravery to get out there and actually start working with teams, be it on a pro bono basis or paid, but there's no substitute for being out there. So I'll pass
so
it
David,
back.
just to let you know, we've got about a minute for you here so that we can do the breakout room. So Colm's taken up some of your time.
Oh, I didn't mean to, David. Sorry.
That's all right. That's fine. I just have the analogy in my mind. The messiness is effectively what we're saying to a team is like a surgeon. Do you mind if I actually get all the guts out from your intestines and spread them on the table before we put them back again in a different order? Yeah, that's the contract, and we have to really have confidence in ourselves, and the team and the leader have to have confidence in us too in that role. But I'll just focus on one thing, which I think, going back to the issue of being systemic. It's quite clear that when we enter into the system that is a team, that team is a system within multiple other systems. We've suddenly become part of that system. Some of the cases in the book relate to people who are actually in the team who are also team coaches, or a combination of internal and external. It's complicated. And being aware of the impact that we're having simply by being there, and the impact that the team is having on us, that requires us to be much more aware, both self-aware and other-aware in the moment. It's a skill that we don't need so much as a one-to-one coach, but we need it very much as a team coach.
Beautiful. I think it's over to you guys. Colm, you want to? I'll put the slide up if you want to maybe.
Yep. So, folks, you've heard us talk for a while. Let's change dynamic. We are going to get you into breakout groups. So our colleague Dila is going to organize you into groups. What's the ask? I put the ask into chat. So we're going to give you 20 minutes. We'd love you to do some brief introductions and make some connections, but we'd like you to explore in your 20 minutes, and maybe best practices might be good to have a spokesperson to come out of this with some of your insights. What's the relevance of team coaching to organizations and culture? You've heard some of our views. What are you hearing? Whether you're in an organization, you're coaching leaders, you're an OD consultant, you're in HR, whatever role you play, what do you think is the relevance of team coaching? We shared some thoughts, but that's not exhaustive. And what are the 1 or 2 key opportunities for team coaches to develop themselves and to develop best practice? And anything else that comes out of your conversations, we welcome it all. So welcome back. I hope you had a good dialogue with your co-attendees. What we'd like to do is maybe just build on the conversation, and we probably won't get directly to every group, but let me start off with my favorite group. I'm only joking. You're all my favorite groups, but I'm going to call on group 4, and just to save any panic, what group were we in? That's Anna Corinne, Cheryl, Lou, Marion, and Ngozi. And I was wondering, would someone from that group maybe like to join us, unmute yourself, and maybe share what were some of the kind of the key insights or learnings from your conversation? So do we have a volunteer from lovely group 4?
I would invite Ngozi actually to share something, because those of us with more experience of team coaching in the group were answering some really good questions from Ngozi. So I'm curious to know what you got from the discussion.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, colleague. It was a great and insightful exposure to sit with experienced coaches like her and our other colleague. And from their experiences, we learned that in team coaching, it's important to assess also the personalities of the individuals in the team. If you just take on a team head on as a team, some people will want to overshadow others. Those who are usually calm and quiet will just sit back in that team and not be very active or effective. But when you get a session to connect with each and every one of them, perhaps prior to the team coaching session, you'll be able to have individual assessment. You'll be able to understand the individual needs, and you can respond to them when they come back in a team. And that will help you to get everyone in the team to respond. And I think it makes for a more interactive session, an exciting session. And I must say, our group was very, very insightful and exciting. So if you guys give us another session, we won't mind it at all. Thank you very much.
And before you take us, so Goody, thank you for sharing. So one of your learnings was how to engage or contract with each member of the team, spend time with them, discovering with them, so you make that connection. So you have to work with the team, but also the parts of the team. And while I have Cheryl and Ngozi there as well, where did your conversation go around the need for team coaching? We were asking you to think about the need for organizations and culture. Did you have any insights from either of you as joint spokespeople?
Yes, of course, to strengthen collaboration, because when you pull the resources together, you get to help each other, build each other, just like we're in this short segment now, and we've learned from the experience of the older ones. So in team coaching, it's not just yourself. There could be challenges of being vulnerable initially, but when the coach is able to open up everybody, they get to benefit from each other. Networking and collaboration, I would want to say, yeah.
Okay. Ngozi, thank you very much. Cheryl, you want to add anything to that before we move out of group 4?
Yeah, we also touched on this difference between wants and needs, because quite often we're contacted by a team that wants a team coaching because they need to fix something, or they need some mediation, or they just want a facilitator. And actually, underneath all that is a need, but they haven't identified it themselves, and they don't really know what team coaching can offer. I mean, that is something we could discuss at greater length as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Group 4. You met my expectations of you as a group. I knew you were going to be wonderful. Let me check in before we move to another group, equally wonderful. Tammy and David, anything jumping out from what Cheryl or Ngozi mentioned the last few minutes? Anything you want to comment upon? And again, anybody in the chat function want to share your observations or questions, please keep adding to that.
Tammy, you go first.
I just wanted to pick up on the fact that, it's great to get information about team members and start getting to know them and build relationships and all of that. And sometimes there's a risk to getting too much information and thinking you know too much, and really having confirmation bias, when our job as team coaches are to work with the collective as the client, as opposed to each individual within the team being a client. So it's something to notice. It's a good opportunity to look at what's the right balance, because I'm not saying don't do it, but bringing that to supervision and really looking at, is it my need that's being met here? And in which case, probably not the right way to approach it, versus is that supportive to the context of what the team needs, and them being stakeholders of each other and helping from that perspective. So I'd love to hear from another group.
Great. Yeah. Or David, do you want to add anything before we move on to the group? Anything to add?
I can do. One thing that I like to do in many groups, just to make sure that everybody gets a chance to speak, or everybody is heard, which is a very different thing. Is we are right at the end of a discussion, we say, or at the end of the session, we say, what needed to be said but hasn't been said. And now we've got teams, or lots of teams, they actually include this as part of their regular team discussions. because it's such a valuable way of just doing a check-in for those silent voices.
Great. Thank you both. Let's move on. My next favorite group, as you all are, is group 6. So that was Cassie, Eileen, Francois, Luca, and Tatiana. Would someone there like to maybe come in as spokesperson and share their observations of what came out of their conversations? Calling group 6. Is anybody out there?
Hello, this is Françoise here. I quite like sharing the idea to suggest that maybe for one person or for a group who is less experienced in team and group coaching could share, and then we can add.
So we start to talk about this team coach and like team training, any similarity and then any difference. And then, so because team training sounds like it's a more widely accepted idea for organizations, but then team coach, my personal experience is still comparatively new. But then my team members like Luca and Francis give some insight about the systemic coaching, the experience, and then the team coaching, the experience. That's quite a lot of the insights for me personally. And then we move to the opportunities we can develop as team coach, including join sessions like this, conference, and read some books, and then plenty of books out there for us to read. And then the last topic we touch is about how easy to get on an organization to take this idea in about team coaching. And Luca also shared of some of his experience to combine the team coaching with consulting. Yeah, I hope I might miss out some points. My teammate can chip in. Yeah.
Cassie, could you say a bit more about team training? I'm just trying to maybe locate you. That was an experience you had. What would a team training?
We're talking about like organization. Normally we arrange a lot of like corporates, and then organization will organize a lot of training, company training, not necessarily on the business side. It could be also training about how to develop your career, and then training, some soft skill training. So that's I think that is quite widely accepted concept for HR to arrange some training for the staff. But team coaching is less well known.
Yeah, interesting. There's a question I like to ask teams when I first get to meet them, and we think, or we're trying to figure out, is there work ahead? But I'll often ask them, where does this team get to learn together? And I'm often met with confusion. And it's like, do you mean a training course that we all went on? Oh yeah, we went to INSEAD. And I go, no, where does this team get to learn? Because a difference between, I'm not sure how much learning happens in training. It can happen, but even as team coaches, I think part of our job, maybe the major part, for me, team coaching is a learning intervention, is how do we help the team pause and reflect, have better conversations, but building their learning capacity in the moment, because we will leave, we have to leave, and how do we build that? So I think you're right. One of the challenges, how do we challenge the training mindset, where you can almost sheep dip people into getting something. And that doesn't really work for teams in my experience anyway. Tammy and David, anything jumping out there from what Cassie shared that you'd like to comment upon, or should I go to the next group?
Let's go to the next group. Let's get another one in, yeah.
Great, okay. I'm going to call, looking at my list, group 3. That was Jenny, Luba, Muhammad, and Emmanuel. We'd love to hear a spokesperson from group 3.
Thank you very much. Beautiful group for sharing your experiences. So we thought that team coaching is relevant in a way that it helps team reflect on how self-reliant they are and also become more self-reliant, which is a benefit for organizations. It helps to get teams up to speed and maybe increase their speed if they wish so. That it facilitates learning, it facilitates leadership. So, for example, a team that's been coached can create a positive learning or leadership ripple effect in the whole organization. And that's what we talked about. And as for our favorite ways to develop ourselves as team coaches. They are using different resources available. We're lucky to have lots of books and webinars and training programs on this. We use opportunity to work with our co-coach and to learn from each other and to get feedback from our co-coach, do team coaching supervision either on our own or together with our co-coach, peer feedback, and also put ourselves in group experiences or different group experiences with various dynamics so that we could also polish up our style or maybe learn new things about ourselves.
Right, nice, thanks, Luba. I think the first time we've mentioned maybe this idea of co-coach. Is that something you've experienced? And would you like to say more about? Have you worked with a team coach?
Yes. In one of my team engagements, I currently work with a co-coach, and I think I'm lucky in a way that we have a very matching energy. I think that's been very beneficial for the team, that the team doesn't kind of change the energy or the temperature of the room too often. My co-coach is very experienced, so we can always learn from each other. I think one of the most beneficial things was how we established agreements among ourselves as co-coaches. So, for example, when we just got started on the engagement and we were both assigned to this as co-coaches, actually, it's not that we picked each other as co-coaches. So we had a longer contracting period, a couple of meetings, and we shared our concerns that we might have about the team or about this assignment or about working with a new co-coach. And I guess just a lot of communication with a co-coach before the engagement, after each session, planning sessions together. This experience was extremely rewarding.
So you've invested a lot in that relationship. And I guess research is telling us the quality of the co-coaching relationship will have an impact on the experience of the team, and vice versa. The team system will often impact our co-coaching relationship. So that's a great shout out there. Thank you for that, Luba. Thank you for room number 3. I'm going to do one more room, if it's okay, Tammy and David, and then we can maybe step back and look at some of the questions that are coming up or our own observations from this. So I'm spinning my wheel here, and I am going to go to room number 2. One of my favorite rooms. That's Catherine, Eric, Jan, Katalin, and Sahana. Is there somebody? Thank you again, Luba. Anybody from group 2 who would like to join us and share their insights?
Yes, I was appointed. It's Jan here from that group.
You are right in the middle of my screen all this session, so it was only meant to be.
It was meant to be. You got a certain prediction there. Excellent, thank you. Yeah, on the first question, absolutely, we felt there's a strong connection between team coaching and organizational culture, and the intervention on a larger scale outside the team. And we reflected also on Tammy's earlier comment around the close connection into consulting. Which is our experience in cases often that the two are related, is quite often either part of a larger intervention, or it's naturally will get sort of talking about the wider space that the team operates in. In terms of the second element, some of the things we talked about there was conflict management, mediation type of skills when you see issues in the team. We talked about the skill of the confident team coach to not believe they can fix all the problems the team has. Some of them are almost unsolvable. Some of them it really is up to the team to own, to fix. We also spoke about the co-coach and the benefits of having somebody with a different coaching perspective. So the example Sahana gave was to work with an agile coach, and how beneficial that was to get a really different perspective on the coaching and the interaction in the team. And the last comment, something we discussed, was that now some of the leaders have been trained in team coaching. and they're quite often very confident in their abilities, and how to differentiate what would an external coach and team coach actually be able to bring that the leader as the team coach actually have. That was something we discussed as well.
That's a lovely one.
What was the conclusions in that discussion? Because we also had, I think, Cheryl in chat saying, it's very different working with an internal co-coach as opposed to being both external. Did you have any conclusion about what the value out of an external team coach will be?
No, we just discussed that it will be important for us to differentiate what is it that it will do. So no, we didn't actually go into solving that riddle.
Okay. Right. Thanks, Jan. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Can I just say a big thanks to all the groups for all your work, and for the ones I called out, thank you for sharing. Tammy and David, maybe let's stick with what we've just heard from the breakout groups just for a few minutes. Anything landing? So we had the Gozi and Cheryl starting us off, talking a bit about meeting individuals in the team, the importance of contracting. We've had talk about co-coaching. We've had talk about differentiating external, internal coaching. What's landed with either of you? What do you want to share?
One of the things that's landed very strongly with me is this whole issue on coaching. It's something we've been thinking about for a little while. We're planning when we probably before the end of this year to launch a survey to try and gather team coaching experience of co-coaching, because there isn't any significant research in that area. So we want to be able to gather experiences like Luba's, for example, and to be able to say, okay, so how did it work? What are the challenges for this? How do you prepare for this? So just basically get under the surface of this a lot more, because at the moment we're basically working on anecdote in this area. So it's an area that I think is ripe for real investigation.
And David, would you have a view? I mean, some of us on this call will not necessarily be working with a co-coach. We may be doing team coaching on our own. Is there a best practice, or do you have any view yourself on one way or the other?
I think it's just a matter of practicality. The bigger the team, the more you need, the more essential it is that you have a co-coach to get your back. If you're working in a team of 3 people, then you can keep an eye on everybody. You can be aware of what's happening in the room. If you're working with a team of 8, 9, or 10 people, frankly, you can't. Your ability to absorb what's going on, the silent conversations in the room, all at the same time. You need somebody behind you who's focusing not just on the process, but on focusing on the room and what's going on within it. So highly intuitive in many ways. So I think it's more a matter of practicality. How effective can we be given the size of the team?
Great, thanks, David.
Tammy, I know her thoughts on that.
Yeah, I guess I'm going to weave a few different things from the chat and what people have shared from their breakout rooms together here, if I can, is that to me, what I notice is how dedicated we are as team coaches to the complexity that's on offer in these sorts of environments. And so, one of the beauties of having a co-coach is being able to look at the system and really, having those roles defined where, I might be, for example, if Colm and I are co-coaching together, might be my role to run the process with the team. And it's his role then to feed back what he's noticing within the team in the moment, what we might have talked about in the last session, what's happening systemically, etc. So the team then has more opportunities for expansion and growth. And I think that this goes to some comments that have been made in the chat about how do you actually sell this thing then? It might be great best practices, but my client is not going to pay for that. And, my challenge is to all of us on the call, because I want to have lots and lots of fire starters out there with me on trying to educate the client about this, is that, number one, the result is better. So we are doing research onto this. But also the fact that this bridges on consulting again. In my opinion, coaches have been caught in this trap of we sell an hourly rate, we price our coaching out as a one-to-one, individual hourly engagement. And then when you go in with a team, what are you going to do? Well, there are 8 people in the room times my hourly rate. Is that going to be your rate? Like, that's not fair to the client. And nor is it the other way around, where you say, oh, well, I only charge, X per hour, and then you got 8 people in the room or what have you. So work with people who have the background of consulting to really look at, how do you price it out? How do you scope it? People have talked about working with internal coaches, great combination, internal and external co-coaches. In an engagement, saves the client money. You get the internal perspective on that team, or on the teams of teams, if you're working that way. So sorry to talk so long, but I'm trying to bridge a few different things about this around, we also need to shift as coaches to be able to meet the challenge. It's not just that the modality is new. It's also, what is the client needing? And can we have a dialogue and really figure that out and collectively put something together that matters, that I can bring? I might bring some of my colleagues in, and I might see if the client has some folks who can support this team to grow.
Yeah. Thank you both. I think we might segue then to some of the questions. We've been looking through chat, trying to see if there's questions for us to address. So, Tammy, was there any particular question you wanted to share?
Yeah, we've got a few of them here, some really great ones. So I think the one that we said that we wanted to start off with was to discuss the challenges that we've seen that team coaches might fall into, and what's the role of supervision. And I know there are a few professional team coaching supervisors on this session as well, so it might be interesting to have them come off of mic and have them put in their voices as well. I'm really happy to hear from them as well. So
yeah, I very much echo that. So yes.
Does anybody want to kick us off on this topic, and we can answer a little bit of that ourselves? I'm looking at you, Lise Lewis, in particular, but there are others there as well. But she's unmistakable with that bright red hair. Hey, Lise, would you like to say a couple words to kick us off on this topic?
I use the word evangelical in our breakout room, and I don't want to sound like that, because we're all sold on it, aren't we? We know the value of supervision, and I think we still have that space to accept that sometimes we're well ahead of the curve, aren't we, on what we believe is necessary, essential, and we know it works, all those wonderful things, that actually maybe team coaches aren't quite ready for that either. We've had this ongoing battle, if you like, around the value of supervision. So I think we need to be able to spread the word more in terms of what do we offer in terms of supervision. What effect will it have? What is the impact? And not anticipate that people will automatically think, oh yes, I think I'd like some team coaching supervision. And maybe we ought to push out in that way some of the situations that we come across. If this is what you're experiencing in your practice, I don't know quite how we do this, but we could do it. We've got enough networks. Then this is how supervision can help. I think we need to market ourselves. I'll leave it there, just because about the benefits and how we're going to promote it.
Awesome, Lise. I'm sure people will come to you in the breakout and be able to have a chat in the networking space. David, what were some of the challenges there that why people would come to supervision? I think that was one of the parts of that question Lise didn't answer.
I'm for some reason drawn back to the issue of the co-coaching. I find that frequently the issues that we get relate to relatively new team coaches partnering with somebody else and valuing your own experience and not being overawed by. I don't want to give really specific examples, but a number of times we've had people who come with different experience. Instead of both of them valuing that experience, one of the team coaches has basically overvalued their own experience against that of the other. And we find that what we end up with is conflict between the two team coaches, often hidden, and that because they're both trying to be nice to each other, but that conflict is there and it spills over into the interaction of the team. There's a lot of projection from that into the team, potentially. And so just being able to have those really honest and open conversations between the two team coaches. And I'm finding as a supervisor that very often it's helping people construct that conversation they need to have.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Colm, do you have anything to add?
Just a few things. So talking to Peter Hawkins about this a while back, and he challenged me with the view of, you know what, team supervision isn't for you, it's for the team.
Exactly.
So as a team coach supervisor, I'm always trying to put the lens back on. I'm just, as the team coach, I'm just a part of the system. But what am I doing to help the team shift? What's the need of the team? How did the team build relationships with their stakeholders? So I think that's an interesting challenge, and there is real value in the co-coaching. I think the other piece I recognize as a team of team coaches, we get tangled up in the dynamics and the culture and the system that the team's in. So if they're a real, be the best, be the experts, we are all very clever, we suddenly feel that pressure and we may not always be conscious of it. So supervision is the place to unpack that. Or, working with a team recently and the leader is very much faster. Stop talking. This is boring. Let's not reflect. And how do we fight that? Because we're trying to please, let's be honest, trying to please the leader, trying to make sure we get more work, trying to pay attention to the team, trying to pay attention to our needs and our expertise. How do we slow it down? And so we just get tangled up in this. So it's like a hairball, which is probably a pretty disgusting image this time of the morning. But
don't go with that.
How do we pull ourselves out of that and just step back and go, you know what, actually, we are going to be disruptive on purpose, and we're going to take a different stance. And my old Gestalt teacher used to always say, how can you be the presence that's not in the room? And that's always an interesting challenge of, do I need to speed up because they're taking a lot of time or indecisive, or do I need to slow it down? I think supervision allows that. I also see Vlad with his hand up there as well, so we might get to Vlad as well.
Yeah, Vlad.
Brilliant. I just remember Peter, all of our great friends, David Meganson, with a team, they were impatient. The leader was saying, "Come on, no, we're much too slow." And David says, "No, we're much too fast. Let's experiment. Let's slow down by at least 3 or 4 times." And just got them to experiment with slowing everything way down. And then they got the message.
Nice. Vlad?
What Colm said triggered me a great speech from one of our king from the history, who said that the greatest things that we achieve is not for me, is not for us, is not for our children, but it's for the grandchildren of our grandchildren. And this is somehow connected with team coaching for future generation. But I will challenge Colm and Peter Hawkins, saying is not for team coaching. Supervision is not for team coaches, is not for the team. It is for stakeholders, for future generations, and for achievement of the shared purpose.
Lovely.
Challenge accepted, Vlad. Thank you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, lovely to see you. So just capping off this conversation, and Colm, if you could look at time check for me here while I'm answering. There's some really pragmatic things. So how do you find a team coaching supervisor? There are many people who provide team coaching supervision out there. The tips are that you really interview the supervisor, because there's lots of supervisors out there, but do they think systemically?
Yeah.
Do they have some team coaching background? Have they been professional team coaches? Have they had any sort of team coaching training? Do they have an organizational background? And or what kinds of supervision do they practice? So it's because of the complexity we've talked about today, I would really caution you to quite interview your supervisor and make sure that they've got what you need. and also talk to them about their pricing, how much you need to come in. Put your costs into your proposal. You do not need to put it as a line item, but make sure that you price out when you're doing your proposal for your team coaching engagements to include supervision. And the last thing is check the AMCC websites, the Apex website. There's a number of coaching supervision and coaching supervisor associations out there, or contact any one of us and we can help you with that. But there are some great folks out there that are happy to do that. I front up, as Colm was talking about GTCI before, I'm head of supervision for GTCI, so I've vetted a lot of them over time. So really happy to support anybody who needs help in that. Colm, how are we doing for time?
Yeah, so we have about 5 more minutes for this piece, and then just let you all know, Tammy, David, and myself then live with you have to do a quick 30-second amazing talk for EMCC to capture as a video. So we've got 7 minutes overall, but probably about 4 or 5 minutes left of us having this conversation. And then what's coming up afterwards, just to keep you engaged, is that tomorrow we'll come back on and talk to us about a networking event. So there's the option to stay on for another 30 minutes and get to meet some more of the folks on this call if you're able to stay. So now that I've said that, we've got about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
What Tammy was saying, because there's one other thing that I think is important to think about in selecting your supervisor, and that is, what's the nature of the group of coaches they bring together, assuming it's group supervision rather than one-to-one. So what kind of group do they have? What experience, is it very experienced people? Is it less experienced people? Is it a mixture? What's the size of the group that you might have? A group could be too small to get the requisite diversity and variety, or it could be too big for you to be able to get your voice heard. And there's a sort of sweet spot in the middle, and you'll have an opinion about that. So thinking about the nature of the group as well that you want to be part, it's not just about the supervisor, it's about the colleagues within or in the group as well.
So I did a scan on the leftover questions, and the thing that strikes me is about things like, who is the ideal client? When are teams actually ready to buy team coaching? How do we start having that dialogue with them? So I'm really curious, because it kind of wraps a few different themes together. Colm, what kind of stands out for you on that?
I'm smiling at the concept of an ideal client. I'm not sure I've ever presented as an ideal client to a coach or a supervisor, and I'm not sure I've ever met them. Readiness is interesting. So a few things, and I'm going to piggyback on the work of David Clutterbuck in terms of this idea. And David, I'm going to mention that you can definitely go deeper, but the secure leader, I think, is a really powerful concept. So let me just frame what I think that is, and then I'll ask David to say more. But this idea of again, I think there's a level of vulnerability here for the leader of the team. It's no more than we're a family of 5. I say, there's some interesting dynamics at dinner time in our house. Come and observe us. I'm not only just bringing you to the house to observe me, I'm bringing you in as the dad of the house, as meant to be one of the 2 adults. That's questionable, but there's a lot of anxiety for me in inviting you in. So the leader, I think, again, needs attention. And this idea that David pointed out was, how secure are they? David, do you want to say more about that, what your research said about the secure leader? Because I think it's a good sign for readiness.
I think the critical thing for me about the secure leader is they don't feel any need to manage anybody. They feel the need to create the environment where people can manage themselves. And that's a big conceptual step for people to take. But when they can do that, then they're prepared to accept that the issues the issues aren't just with the team. The issues are in the interfaces between the members of the team and each other, and the team and the team leader themselves, influenced by the bigger systems around them in the organization. So their willingness to engage with the entire system and their role within the system is an important starting point. And I think that's why so much team coaching starts with really good one-to-one coaching with an individual leader, and then progresses when that leader is ready to progress into that next level of working with the team as a whole, when they have the confidence in the coach and themselves then I think then that's the right time.
Gateway, yeah. I guess just one thing for me as well is I think there's that old principle of consulting is you meet the client where they are. You know, do I meet every team where they're ready to go really emergent, have really deep conversations, really challenge all their norms? No, sometimes they are there and they're ready to go, but sometimes it is, you know, my role may be a bit more the facilitator up front than it will be towards the end. I might need to be patient. You know, we can only, for any of us, we can only develop where we start off. So I think there's something about one of my learnings was to take my perception of what perfect team coaching is and put it over there somewhere, because I may want to hold that, but how do I work with what's in front of me? And again, understanding what their need is. I don't think dragging them on a journey that I want them to go on is not the road to success either. Tammy, any thoughts for you as you raise those questions with us?
Yeah, so for me, I agree with you, Colm. There's no ideal client out there, and meeting the client where they're at, regardless of where they're at in the organization, Cheryl, it's all the same stuff. And so to me, I'm going to be brief because I'm keeping an eye on the time here, is that, you know, we, again, as team coaches, I think kind of go in there as missionaries. Oh, how can I help? How can I, you know, change them? How can I support this team to be better? And da-da-da. You know, a consultant is not going to go in there and say, how can I help you? They might, but it's also like, is there a fit? Are we the right people? Like, are you ready for this? And being a little bit kind of like dating when you get together with that client, when you're first starting to talk to them, and like, do we want to work together? Like, are you willing to pay what I'm worth? You know, are you really willing to do the work? Because team coaching is your team actually doing the work. All I'm doing here is helping with some scaffolding and some design and so on. So holding a little bit back and really having a dialogue with the team is what I'd love to leave people with.
Great. Okay, we are going to call this, I'm going to show my age by referencing Opportunity Knocks, which was a program many moons ago where people from the street got to do their great skill. David Clutterbuck, you've got 30 seconds. Opportunity Knocks, what's been the essence of your reflection from this session?
I think the critical thing, as always, is just how complicated this is, and how if you're going to be using process and routine to do this, it's going to fail. So it's all about being adaptable in the moment and not trying to impose our idea of how the conversation should go, but to give the team much more control over that. So we're there as a catalyst, or and I do say a catalyst rather than a reagent, because we are inevitably changed by the system that we enter into.
Thanks, David. We'll call you, don't call us, as your agent would say. Tammy, over to you. What would you like to say as your wrap up?
Yeah, I think that it's been such a delightful conversation today to hear all of the different aspects that people are thinking about. And to me, I guess I'm really buoyed by the conversation, because I think that the opportunity for organizations and for teams is working collectively. And so whether that's with an individual team, whether with multiple teams, you know, getting the team leader to be more effective with his or her team, all of that sort of stuff is what we have the power to do. And so to me, to really back yourself and feel, as we talked about today, about really feeling comfortable in that complexity and really knowing that you can make a difference. And don't do this stuff on your own. You know, there's huge amounts of support out there, whether it's supervision, whether it's other colleagues, whether or not it's going to a class, reading a book, what have you. Reach out for support and really resource yourself. We're all doing it. Even those of us on the panel are still getting resourced today. So thank you so much, everyone. It's great to be in the pool with you all.
Thanks, Tammy. And my final 30 seconds is maybe to combine the previous comments, complexity, support. I think we have to move from trying to sell team coaching, because of its very nature, it's not a product, and actually partner with the leader we've been coaching, or with the HR person, or with the OD person, and build a true partnership. And that means not trying to be the expert, not trying to sell the solution, but to understand and help them discover their unspecified needs, help them really engage what would look like and feel like if the team was better, and take a partnership approach, because that's what we're going to be doing in the team coaching. I think that's the way we'll have success in actually translating these ideas to a vibrant business as well. Thank you all. I'm going to hand it over to Tamara. I want to say a big thanks to Tammy and David and everybody for your time. Tamara, I think you're going to give us a bit of a heads up around the networking event that's going to happen now.
Thank you so much, Colm. Thank you, Colm, Tammy, and David. This was an amazing session with a lot of insight in team coaching, the dynamics there and the systems, as well as the supervision. For those that want to continue to discuss about all these interesting issues, I'm waiting for you for the networking that will follow right now.